There's no career quite as unique as that of a pastor. There's often the joke that the pastor doesn't really occupy one role, but instead has to find a way to occupy several. They have to be at the same time a theologian, counselor, teacher, and leader for their congregation. With this in mind, it can be uniquely difficult to figure out exactly how one goes about becoming a pastor. Do you go to school? Do you find a mentor? How do you prepare for a career working in God's house? In this short lecture, I hope to answer those questions and provide a few helpful tips for those of you who are thinking of becoming pastors in the future. For thousands of years, people's careers were decided by whatever it was your family did. If your dad was a carpenter, you built houses. If he was a farmer, you worked in the field. You would learn the tricks of your trade from childhood by helping your parents with their work. This was the same for the Levitical priests of the Jewish temple in the times of the Old Testament. You were born into the priesthood just like you would be born into any other career. In our modern world, however, we've largely left this model behind in favor of a more individualistic approach. Now it's up to each person individually to find their calling. This has led to a new process when it comes to our career. It goes something like this. Decide what to do with your life, go to school to learn the skill set, graduate from said school, get hired for a job using that skill set. If we apply this logic to the job of pastor, we should be able to replace school with seminary, and we have our career set out for us. However, like I said previously, being a pastor isn't like any other career. Certain steps should be taken long before you send out the application to your local Bible school. That isn't to say that seminary or education aren't necessary. They very much are. But being a pastor requires a certain foundation to be set in place in addition to the learning that seminary provides, if you want to be successful as a pastor. So, step 1. Commit to a local church and begin serving. Nothing will prepare you more for what it will be like to run a church than serving as a volunteer behind the scenes. The local church is often where much of the on-the-job training comes from for a potential pastor. Additionally, once you're running your own church, your daily operations will live and die based on the team of volunteers you have around you. Serving yourself helps to give you perspective into what it's like to be a volunteer and what it means to serve humbly and with gentleness, lessons that will prove invaluable when it comes time for you to lead your own church. Step 2. Read the whole Bible at least once. Let me start off by saying that the Bible is a massive tome written by people who lived 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. I realize that reading it from cover to cover is no small task and requires no small amount of sacrifice. However, it has also been made clear that biblical illiteracy is on the rise in our churches. And if our pastors are unable to combat it with their own biblical knowledge, no one else will either. Jesus made it clear that biblical literacy was an important part of his own life through his example and teaching. The Bible was not written as a series of disembodied verses, but as a unified story. It's only through reading the Bible all together that we're able to grasp this story and properly teach the theology we hold to, and teach it properly to our future congregants. Step 3. Learn how to make disciples and shepherd people. The Great Commission isn't only for pastors and missionaries. God's call to reach the lost doesn't stop at the pulpit. Before we become pastors ourselves, it's important that we begin to act out the Great Commission in our own lives by reaching out to those within our community and learning how to shepherd them into mature Christians. Discipleship doesn't just happen from the stage. Any shepherding process requires one-on-one attention as well. Practicing this within your church will prepare you for the realities of acting out the Great Commission as a pastor. Step 4. Pray and listen for God's direction toward ministry. At least 25 times within the Gospels, we find Jesus praying fervently and habitually. Prayer formed the foundation of his ministry, just like it should form the foundation of our own. Anyone seeking a career in ministry would be wise to make sure their own prayer life is strong long before they begin to consider applying for a position or go to seminary. Everyone should pray and ask God to make their calling clear to them, but it is particularly important for those who feel a pull to pastoring to listen for the Lord's guidance. This process of prayer and listening will also create a sense of self-awareness. God will let you know what gifts He has given you and what gifts He has not. This knowledge will help you to find your place within the ministry. Not everyone is called to be the head pastor. Some are called to minister to children and others to lead in worship. All are equally valid and wonderful ways of serving within the body of the church. Step 5. Begin to look at seminary. After following the previous steps, it is a good idea to begin to look into whether or not seminary is right for you. Seminary is a place to deepen our theology and build off of the experience we've already gained within our local churches, so that we can then go out again to serve and teach more confidently. Education is not the end-all be-all of pastoral training, like it would be for, say, an engineer, but it is a vital part of any pastor's growth in the ministry. Thank you for watching this lecture. I hope this has helped to clarify what the process of becoming a pastor entails. If God is calling you to become a pastor, I hope you take this advice to heart. If He isn't, I hope you keep in mind that these are good concepts to follow for everyone within the church, not just those called to leadership. I hope you have a blessed day. Goodbye.